Welcome. My name is Dr. Marguerite Duane, and I'm delighted to be here today to share with you a little bit more about natural or fertility awareness-based methods and how you can choose the method that is best for you. Briefly, I'd ask you to consider when thinking about a fertility awareness-based method, what do you know about these methods? What do you know about how they work, the different signs that you can observe? How are they different from conventional methods of family planning? Are fertility awareness-based methods just the rhythm method? These are questions that often come up when I'm speaking with patients about these methods, and it's important to understand that modern or natural fertility awareness-based methods allow women to observe specific signs or biomarkers that they can then use to monitor their health and identify that potential window of fertility. Modern fertility awareness-based methods are actually not the rhythm method. The rhythm method, when it was developed more than a century ago, was based on the best science at the time, in which researchers had discovered that ovulation occurs about 12 to 16 days before the next period. And the rhythm method was developed based on that research using an algorithm where women would track the length of previous cycles and use a formula to try to predict future fertility. Again, this was developed in the 1930s, and at the time was the best science of its time. Sort of like at the time, the telephone was a major invention. But just like the telephone has advanced in technology, so have modern fertility awareness-based methods. With modern FABMs, again, women observe biomarkers in real time. Cervical fluid secretions, basal body temperature, or urinary hormones are all signs that women can choose to observe. And the key is when women observe these signs, they can identify their potential window of fertility in real time. So instead of using retrospective data like the lengths of previous cycles to predict future fertility with the rhythm method, modern fertility awareness-based methods use day-to-day data to identify that potential window of fertility based on the observations in real time. The other advantage of modern fertility awareness-based methods is they have a whole range of applications. Just like today's smartphone allows you to do more than just keep in touch with your friends and family via phone, the modern smartphone can be used for so many different techniques, as can modern fertility awareness-based methods. I want to just highlight on a couple of things that we will talk about, just the applications for women's health and their use for avoiding and achieving pregnancy. And then we'll really finish up with how to choose a method and why these methods may be a healthier alternative. The beautiful thing about modern fertility awareness-based methods is they really allow women to know her body. By charting these external observations, this reflects the internal hormonal changes a woman experiences on a day-to-day basis throughout her cycle. She can track patterns to identify when she may be expecting her period, common symptoms she may experience at certain times of her cycle. All of this information through education about the signs of her fertility can really empower women to know their body. I talked a little bit about the signs of the female cycle, and I just want to highlight them here. The three key signs that women can observe are cervical fluid secretions, which will vary depending on the hormones, basal body temperature, which rises under the influence of progesterone, and urinary hormone metabolites, which women can observe through testing her urine. Each of these signs give women valuable information about what is happening with her internal hormonal health. And again, women can use this information to monitor their cycle and identify that potential window when they could become pregnant. I often like to describe the phases of the female cycle and compare it to the seasons. In the beginning of a cycle, a woman's basal body temperature is low and she'll note dryness, just like in the winter when the temperatures are low and the ground is cold and dry. It's not really a suitable time for planting. And similarly, a woman is not able to conceive when her temperature is very low and she experiences dryness. But as a woman's estradiol rises, this will lead to the production of fertile cervical fluid, which is a sign that a woman is entering her fertile window and the ground is fertile or moist and ready for planting. Similar in the springtime, the ground is fertile and ready for new seeds to take root. Once a woman ovulates, her basal body temperature will rise, and this increased temperature provides a nice warm environment to allow for a newly formed embryo to begin to grow. Similarly, in the summertime, plants under the heat of the sun with appropriate water can continue to grow. So again, this is a very easy way for women to understand the phases of the cycle by comparing it to the seasons of the earth. And finally, if a woman has not conceived, her hormones will begin to drop, and this triggers the brain to shed the uterine lining. The woman's uterine lining will shed, she'll experience her period, and a new cycle will begin. So the phases of the female cycle, the hormonal changes she experiences, produces different observable signs that really mirror the seasons of the earth and provides a nice, easy way to explain to women and men to better understand the female cycle. Now, there are actually different types of FABMs that integrate the use of different signs. Some, like the Billings, Creighton, and 𝗂𝗏 method, simply teach women to observe cervical fluid secretions only. The Billings method was first developed in the 1960s and is the earliest of the modern methods. The Creighton model uses a more standardized approach for making those observations of cervical fluid. The 𝗂𝗏 method is a very simplified version that is available to women of any literacy level and allows a broader number of couples to be able to use these methods. With symptothermal methods, couples can learn to observe cervical fluid plus basal body temperature, again, to identify the beginning and the end of her fertile window. These methods are taught via Sensaplan and SymptoPro, 𝗘𝗁𝗂𝗍𝗄𝐿, and 𝗓𝗐𝗔 as an example. With symptohormonal methods, women can learn to observe cervical fluid secretions plus or minus urinary hormone measurements. The most popular of these is the Marquette Method, which you can certainly learn more about. And with Marquette, women will learn to track estradiol metabolites and luteinizing hormone, again, to identify the fertile window. FEM, or fertility education and medical management, can be used as a cervical mucus-only method or combined with hormonal observations, such as luteinizing hormone test strips or progesterone test strips. And then there are modern calendar-based methods, such as the standard days method, which can be taught using cycle beads, or women can learn by using an app. The Dynamic Optimal Timing app, which is now a part of the Clue app, is one such example of a modern calendar-based and evidence-based fertility awareness method. Hopefully you see through this presentation that there are methods for everyone, and charting can be and should be made available to everyone, whether a woman is single or married. What these methods teach couples is to observe these external changes that reflect the internal changes a woman experiences on a day-to-day basis in her cycle. So again, whether a woman is from a poor culture or whether she's married, no matter what her reasons, women can learn how to chart their cycle. And these methods should be made available to every woman. Women can choose to chart their signs with an app or on paper. One word of caution though, Facts did a study of fertility awareness-based apps back in 2015. And unfortunately, at that time, what we discovered is most apps were not evidence-based. And so we strongly recommend, if you are going to use an app, be sure to learn the method from a trained instructor and don't simply rely on the app to tell you when you may be fertile or not. An app can serve as a fantastic tool to facilitate tracking your cycle, but it's always best to learn to chart your signs from a trained instructor. So now to the meat of the matter. How do you choose which method? Well, that's going to depend on what your goals are. If you're using them for women's health issues, you may want to use different methods versus others. And the neat thing is these methods can be used to address a range of women's health issues, whether women have painful or irregular periods, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PMS, women who are experiencing struggles in family planning, whether it's postpartum depression or infertility. Many of these methods can be used to help them achieve their goals. Again, the fertility awareness-based methods can also be used to help couples to try to avoid or achieve pregnancy. And we encourage you to visit our factsaboutfertility.org website for the latest up-to-date evidence on the effectiveness of these methods. Be sure to read our paper, Fertility Awareness-Based Methods for Women's Health and Family Planning. The bottom line, though, couples can use these methods because it helps them to identify when they are fertile together as a couple. What's important to note is men are almost always fertile. Once a man goes through puberty, he's able to produce sperm on a daily basis. So unless he has an illness or an injury, men are almost always capable of impregnating a woman. Women, on the other hand, are almost always infertile. And this has to do with the lifespan of the egg or ovum, as well as the presence of cervical fluid secretions. When a woman ovulates, that egg will be around for 12 to 24 hours, during which time she is able to conceive, when the egg can be fertilized by the male sperm. In the absence of fertile cervical fluid, those sperm will die within 6 to 12 hours in the woman's reproductive tract. But in the presence of fertile cervical fluid, sperm can survive 3 to 5 days in the woman's cervical glands. And so this is what creates that fertile window of 3 to 6 days, during which time a couple can become pregnant. And again, using fertility awareness-based methods allows the couple to identify that potential window of fertility.